Hey guys, Jack D175, and today I have something a little bit different. It was requested by one of my friends that watches my videos. I was playing with him a week ago, and he said I should try doing a whip tutorial, because the whips in my whip competition video I uploaded a while ago were pretty good. He wanted me to try and make a tutorial on how to do it, so that's what I'm gonna do now. And I'm gonna have 4 types of whips in the tutorial. One of them is just a bigger variation of another one, and there are 2 others that are pretty different than the others. So I know I'm crashing a bit right now, but I'll be landing them once I start showing you how to do it. Alright, so first whip I want to show you is it's just your basic whip, but with a decent jump. You can still make it look pretty good. And what you do is you go up to the face, and right on the edge you turn the bike and lean back. See right there, all I did was turn on the lip, the very edge, and lean back at the same time, and it made it pretty much upside down, so it's really easy controls, nothing crazy, and you get a pretty good whip out of it. One thing I forgot to say is you should probably get decent at the game before you try throwing some really good whips, because you need to have decent bike control to get a feel for bringing it back and everything. And it's just, I remember when I first started trying to whip, it was really hard because I wasn't good at the game. Excuse my phone going off in the background there. And yeah, you need basic bike control to start doing whips. Sort of like in real life, you gotta already be pretty good. And you don't have to worry too much about trying really hard to bring it back. It really depends on the kind of whip. Some whips you really gotta try bringing it back, but on this one you'll see I'll just get it out there and then not do a whole lot. I just kind of held the steering the same way all the way through and gave it some gas to help bring that front end back up. And yeah, it's not too bad. This I'm gonna move on to the second whip now, and it's the same as the first one, but you might need a little bit bigger of a jump. And what you do, it's the exact same thing, except you lean forward at the bottom and then pull back on the takeoff. And just like that, you can see it was quite a bit better than the last one. Pretty much the same controls. You lean forward and then lean back on the takeoff and turn the bike over to the side, and you get better whips for sure, and it's really not any harder. The only thing that can really go wrong is you maybe lean back too late and then end up just doing a really gnarly endo. And one other thing, one tip that I found makes your whips bigger is if you go a little bit too fast for the jump, like you're gonna over jump like crazy, sometimes even land flat, go as fast as you would need to go to do that, and then let off right before you take off. Not right before so that you endo, but like halfway up right there I let off and made it go pretty big. And holding the back brake too, that can make it just go a little bit more sideways, sometimes backwards. I'll show you right here. I'll just tap the back brake while I'm in the air and it gets a little bit bigger. You just gotta really panic rev it. That one was pretty hard to bring back. But yeah, so those are the first 2 whips. Pretty basic, but with the right jump you can really get them out there. And the next whip I'm going to move on to is the Oppo whip. Alright, so now we're on to the Oppo whip. And this is one of my favorite whips, because if you really get good at them and find a good jump to do them on, you can really get pretty insane with them. Like the perfect jump for an Oppo whip, this jump on dirt bike track, there aren't many jumps you'll find that are a lot better than this. It's what you really want is a hip jump, so the landing is on a different angle than the takeoff, so you gotta turn a bit anyways. And yeah, so I'll show you basically how I do oppos. Some people do them a little bit different, but I'll show you the way I do them. You can throw oppos on jumps that aren't hips too, but it's not as easy. So what you do is there, I think I'll just show you an example right there. Wasn't the greatest, but it was still pretty nice. So what you do, I'll just do it on the ground here. So you can see for the jump, I'm turning all the way up the jump so I can get the right angle to make the landing. So I'm turning to the right all the way up, and right at the lip I smack the stick to the left and turn the other way, and it keeps the bike straight up. You don't get it laid down or anything, and it turns you 90 degrees, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on how well you do it, and looks pretty nice. One thing about this whip, I came up a little short there, but one thing about this kind of whip, you have to really bring it back. In the last one I was saying you don't really have to do anything to bring it back, it'll come back on its own. But for this you need to, whoa, front flip. You have to turn the steering in the direction that makes it come back pretty much right away after you take off. I'll show you what happens if you don't do that right here. So if I just keep it this way, I just go backwards and it doesn't come back. On a bigger jump, you can still hold it that way and get it pretty much completely backwards and then bring it back. This jump isn't quite big enough, but it's just so good with the angle of it and everything. I thought it'd be really good for a tutorial because I can get them really consistently on it. One thing you can do, just like the other kind of whip, go a little too fast and then let off, and it'll make it a lot bigger. I went a little bit faster than I should have, but you could see it was definitely a better whip. It was a lot closer to being backwards when I let off right before. And pretty much all the whips in this tutorial are like that, except for the next one. That one wasn't really an oppo. I don't know what that was. It was sort of an oppo. And yeah, the next whip I'm going to show you, I'm not done. There's a little bit more I got to go through with this one, but the next one you got to let off the gas anyways, because it just, I'll explain as I get to it. But there are a lot of different styles you can do with the oppo whip. The one I do the most is just keeping it really flat. Sometimes I like to get the front end a little low. To do that, what you do is you just let off a little bit higher up on the takeoff. Sometimes it can make your front end drop a bit, but it's pretty hard to bring back. I can not bring back, but bring the front end back up. You usually have to panic rev it in 5th gear to bring it back. And another good one, another good style of the oppo is the twitch whip, and it's really the exact same control, except for you want to lean forward before you lean back to bring the front wheel up. So you'll see, I'll do it right here. I'm leaning forward and then, oh, that didn't really work. Maybe it doesn't work too well on this jump, but I know on other jumps, if you lean forward and then lean back, like the second whip I showed you, but do the steering controls of an oppo, you can throw like a twitch whip. So it's pretty good. I'll try it again, try to get the front wheel up some other way. Even if you just panic rev it like that. It came up a little bit, but it wasn't as good as Twitch does it. It's a lot better than he was doing it at 2015 X Games Best Whip, but I'm not gonna get into that. And yeah, I think, you know what, I'll show you an oppo on this straight jump just to show you how to do it on a straight jump instead of a hip. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to go up at an angle, turn. I don't know what the hell happened there, but I sort of did a twitch whip. And I think I turned it back a little too late. But what you want to do is you want to go up it so you're gonna launch off the track like this, and bring it back. Oh man, I'm having trouble. I don't know why. I usually don't have trouble with this. So you go up like you're gonna go off the corner of the jump and fly off the track, and then about halfway up the takeoff you want to turn back the other way so that you're going straight, and then do the same as before where you make it so it's going straight and then crank it the other way. I didn't clear the jump, but you could sort of see it there. And yeah, so that's the oppo. And now I'm going to get on to the fourth and final whip I'm going to be teaching you. Alright guys, so this last whip I'm going to show you is, it's called, there are a few different names for it. The two that I know are the brake whip and the slide whip. I like to call it the brake whip. And what you do is, you know what, I'll tell you what you do when I turn back around so you can maybe sort of see it. I think I'm gonna might go into some side view so I can really show you, unless you can see it. So what you do is you want to go up to the jump straight, and then about halfway up, make sure your brake is on normal first, but anyways, about halfway up the jump you're going to want to lock up your back brake and turn. And what that does, it makes you slide out up the face, and turns into, it can turn into some pretty insane whips. Some of you might recognize this jump from a whip I had a long time ago. I made a video on it. It's called I Think I Got My Swagger Back, and it was on this jump. I did a brake whip, and it was completely insane. I'm not even sure how I did it, but I decided to upload it, and it got quite a bit of views actually. And yeah, so I'll do it again here. So you go up, about halfway up, lock up the brake, and turn. It's pretty much all you do. Lock up the brake and turn. I think I will go into some side camera, put it into a bit of slow-mo so you can really see what it looks like, and you can see when I'm locking up the brake, because I think that'll make it a little bit easier for you to follow. So here, halfway up, turn, lock up the brake, and just let off the brake pretty soon after you get in the air. One thing about this whip I forgot to say, you have to go quite a bit faster than you normally would. So just for an example, I'll show you. You can see I'm hitting the jump second gear pretty much wide open, like the bike's really revved out. And I'll show you what happens when I do it like that, just straight air. You can see I went a good, like, almost 100 feet farther. So you, maybe not 100 feet, but you get the point. I go really far, so gotta make sure you're going a lot faster than you need to for this kind of whip. And not all jumps are good for this kind of whip. I prefer not so steep jumps that launch you far as opposed to steep jumps that launch you high, because for whatever reason they're really hard when they launch you straight up. So yeah, I'm gonna go into some side view now, put it in slow motion, and you'll really be able to see how it looks and maybe get a better sense of when to lock up the brake. Alright, so here I'm in the third person view, and you can't really tell, but what I do is I'll put it in slow motion here. I press the back brake about halfway up and start to turn, but the wheel doesn't really lock up until you leave the ground. So I know I was saying that I locked the wheel up halfway up, but it looks like it's not really true. But I do press the brake halfway up and start the turn. So maybe even sometimes a little bit after the after halfway up, sometimes I press the brake and do all of that. Here, I'll put it in slow motion again so you can see. You see the brakes locked up right as I leave, and then I try to shift up to bring it back and panic rev the crap out of it pretty soon. So yeah, there you can see how I do it. This is I personally think it's the most stylish kind of whip. It's definitely not first person friendly. I'll show you right now what it looks like in first person. You can see it looks pretty hard to know where you're going. It's one of the reasons why I ride in third person. It's just a lot easier to see where you're at the whole time. And yes, I'll show it one more time farther away. There you can see it's a pretty nice whip. I'll show you my setup while this is running. You don't really need so much of a whip setup, but definitely use a setup you're comfortable with. This is my advanced stability setup that I use for everything. The only difference I make for whips is this roll damping, I turn it down. I normally have it at 41 for when I'm riding nationals, and for whips I turn it down to 25. So you can copy this down if you want and you need a good setup if you're just starting out, because it's definitely a good riding setup. Just put this up to 41 if you're gonna use it for sure. And all this stuff you can copy down. Max dab speed, all that does is really makes him put his leg out sometimes when you whip, and when you turn he puts it down sooner. Braking torque for this kind of whip, definitely put it at 500. Front braking torque doesn't really matter. Auto clutch doesn't matter that much. Stability 0 gives you the best whips that you can get. A lot of people ride with 30, and you really can't get whips as good as you would be able to if you could ride on 0. Definitely don't ride with arcade physics unless you're one of those people that doesn't want to get good at the game, because you can't get good at the game on arcade physics. It's just that simple. Leave your rear brake on normal for this kind of whip, because you can't lock up the brake with anti-lock brakes. And I'll let you copy down my suspension and gearing setup. This is what I use for nationals, except I turn rider mass distribution down for nationals. All it does is when it's at 50, you move forward and back a lot more than you would at 38 where I normally have it. So the lower it is, just the more restricted his movement back and forth on the bike is. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. Hopefully this helps some of you guys out, and yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.